Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? Well, with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills. Wait, did I say job title yet? Get started today and see how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Get started at linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
Instacart is on a mission to have you not leave the couch this basketball season. Because between the pre-game rituals and the post-game interviews, it can be difficult to find time for everything else. So let Instacart take care of your game day snacks or weekly restocks and get delivery in as fast as 30 minutes. Because we hear it's bad luck to be hungry on game day. So download the Instacart app today and enjoy $0 delivery fees on your first 3 orders. Service fees apply for 3 orders in 14 days, excludes restaurants.
Hello and welcome to Just Films and That, with me, Josh Hallam.
And me, Alice Oliver. This is the podcast where we talk about films that we think are underrated, underappreciated, or we just wanted to talk about them.
We're also going to get stuck into some classic films that one of us maybe hasn't seen, and maybe throw in some great guests along the way. So we start, as we do every week, with a random question. Alice, simple one this week, bath or shower?
Ooh, bath or shower? I mean, how much time have I got? That's the ultimate question, isn't it? If I've got time, always a bath. I do love having a bath. Makes me nice and warm. I get really cold, fingers and toes. So a nice bath at the end of a hot day, maybe a glass of wine, put a podcast on, usually this one, because I love to hear myself talk. No, joke. But shower also fine. Like, I don't dislike a shower. I feel like maybe you do feel a bit more clean when you come out of the shower as well, because you're not, just kind of soaking in your own water. But the really disappointing thing, and I've only really been thinking about how disappointing this is recently, is I can't use bubble bath because like my skin's really sensitive and I just get loads of issues if I ever use bubble bath. But my husband always has a bubble bath and I'm so jealous. And I feel like the water is just like silkier and softer if you've got bubble bath in it, and it smells lovely as well. So I get a bit jealous about that. But no, in general, a nice bath, even though it is just me in the water. What about you?
I love it when people say that. I love it when people say that about baths, and they say, you're basically just in your own filth, aren't you? And I always think, how dirty are you? Like, if you're getting it, like, I'm not talking about doing a long day down the mines, then getting in the bath and sitting in all cold, soaked water. No. So I never get that, because I always think, well, when you get in the bath, if I exercise, I'll always have a shower because you're sweaty. However, I do prefer a bath. Yeah. But like your husband, I like a bubble bath. I do. I like candles. I like a glass of wine, a bath bomb if there's one going. I also have sensitive skin, so I buy like bath bombs that are for sensitive skin and stuff like that. They're quite good. Yeah, and then I usually put something on my laptop to watch and then put that on the toilet like it's a TV. So I think most people say showers are more practical, and like you say, if you're in a hurry or whatever. I have a shower first thing in the morning to wake myself up. I'll quite often just have a cold shower just to try and focus myself, and because I'm always really drowsy first thing in the morning. But yeah,
you have a cold shower, really? You do that to yourself?
Only for so you get in when it's sort of average, lukewarm temperature, and then just sort of do any washing that you feel you need to do, and then at the end, just turn it right down as quickly as you can and just last as long as you can. So 20 seconds, 30 seconds or something like that.
Okay, interesting. I might try that,
It's
Josh,
really good
because
for
I am quite, yeah.
It's really good for focus. I don't know if it's some sort of caveman thing that's like your body going, I'm going to die, and then you're ready for the day. But, anyway, bath for relaxation, shower for practicality. So we'll move on to talking about this week's film, which is chosen by myself, and it was Ed Wood, which is from 1994, I believe. So spoilers if you've not seen it. It's directed by Tim Burton, stars Johnny Depp, amongst other people. So Johnny Depp plays a director in the 50s called Ed Wood. He's often affectionately considered to be one of the worst directors of all time by a lot of people. And the film sort of follows Wood as he tries to carve out a career as a film director in a sort of very cutthroat, judgmental industry. And despite facing all these personal and professional obstacles, he remained optimistic, despite the fact he's sort of a little bit restricted by his own ability, shall we say. So, Alice, I'm interested to know, have you watched this one before?
No, I hadn't seen this one before. I had heard of it, and I think I did know that it was Johnny Depp and Tim Burton together. And that is a duo that I'm a big fan of. So I was very excited to watch this one. But after having watched it, I'm interested to know why you picked this one. Was this an underrated or an underseen for you?
Yeah, so it's probably, I'd have to say it's underseen, probably, because I know it's pretty highly rated in terms of the films that Tim Burton and Johnny Depp have done together. Like, I think this one's up there on the most critically well received. It's also one of the sort of least mad, least cartoonish, if you like, because it is a biopic. So I picked it because I thought it was underseen. We also hadn't done a Tim Burton film yet, and I thought, well, it's probably high time we did do a Tim Burton film. We also hadn't done a Johnny Depp film, and I do think this is a film where he is quite good. Again, it's one of his it's the less cartoony by the standards Johnny Depp himself has set, and yet the performance itself is still quite cartoony. So so I picked it because it's underseen. I also wrote down that I thought I'd pick it because we hadn't done a biopic yet, and we did Legend like a few weeks ago. So ignore that. Underseen. So I picked it because I think it's underseen.
Okay. Well, and I hadn't seen it, so there's 1 point for that. How did you feel coming away from it? Was this like the first time you'd seen it in a while? Is this one that you kind of watch, semi-regularly?
Yeah, it's probably one that I haven't seen for a couple of years. I have seen it on a number of occasions, and I mean, I really love the film. That's why I've picked it. So, and it still held up for me. I thought it was still brilliant. I think there's a few things I want to talk about. The main two things I love about this film are sort of one of them is the visual style, and one of them is the performances. But I want to come to you first. What did you think of it?
So I did really enjoy it, and you know what? I just got so excited when I see Bill Murray and Johnny Depp on screen together. I was just like, fabulous. I feel like we're in for a heck of a ride here. Interesting that, what you say there about the visual style. I thought it looked fantastic. There was such a wonderful array of camera techniques. There were so many close-ups and then so many medium close-ups. And then beyond that, just so many other kinds of things as well. Fantastic use of shadow, I thought, a lot of times. There was a couple of scenes, I think, actually, where Johnny Depp's character, so Ed Wood, was at is it Lugosi's, the sort of the guy who played Dracula?
Bela Lugosi. Yeah, Bela Lugosi. He's famous for playing like what you think of as the first really famous iteration of Dracula, with the slick back hair and the big black cape and the white shirt. Yeah.
Yeah, certainly. So he went around his house a couple of times, I think, and just sort of every time he went round there was such a wonderful use of shadow, and a lot of the costume choices and the set design in those instances was great. And it really did remind me of Bram Stoker's Dracula and a lot of the things that you see in that. So I really enjoyed that. The music was brilliant. I found myself sofa dancing, like loads to it. Like I would just be sat there and I'd be doing this. You can't see me because this is a podcast, but I'm jiggling my butt and moving my shoulders around. I just couldn't stop dancing to it. And then also, I keep going to say Black Swan. It's not Black Swan. The Swan Lake score came up a lot of times, and I'm wondering if you know much about why that was used so prominently. I had some ideas about it being, like the duality of man, and sort of Ed Wood's character. He has, this version of himself that he shows to the outside world, and then a version of himself that he shows, that's his personal self. And I know that sort of Tim Burton, he's quite a complex character. So I wondered if that had much to do with it. I don't know. Had you noticed that about the Swan Lake score?
It's an interesting point you make. That I'm not too sure why they use that music, or whether it's because it's used in the actual film films with Bela Lugosi in themselves, or like you say, if it's a comment on things like duality, or if it's just because they like it. I also love the music as well, because it comes into the style of the film. So not only the visual style, but the audio style as well. So it's very much made in the way Tim Burton makes his films, in that gothic sort of element. But what they do, what I really love, is they take Ed Wood's films and they make a biopic about Ed Wood in the style of Ed Wood. So like there's lots of sort of sets that are obviously models, and things are meant to look really sort of quite kitsch is the word that comes to mind. So kitsch, it's ironically bad, it's excessively garish, it looks crap on purpose because it's paying homage to the fact that these films were made with crap costumes and on tiny budgets and with rubbish props and bad sets, and you can see the strings on the models and all that, and that's something I really like. Or like there's a scene when it looks like Ed is driving Bela Lugosi home, I think, and it's quite clear that they purposely used a projection screen because that's what they would have done in an Ed Wood film. But the music is very much part of that visual style, and they use that sort of 50s style, like what you'd imagine with Invasion of the Body Snatchers or Invading Aliens. I don't really know what you'd call it, but it sounds like a woo, that's very bad impression, but you know what I mean. And that lends itself to the sort of campy kitsch value of the film, which in turn is paying homage to the films that they themselves are interpreting.
Interesting that it's obviously like set in the 50s, but it is made as if it was made in the 50s as well. Like there were so many wipes. I love that. It makes me laugh so much. And like you say about using the projection and stuff, it was just like, it's a really interesting style choice, I thought. And it made the kind of black and white element of it feel like really real, like it wasn't just a modern film where they're going, oh yeah, let's make this black and white to make it really dark and moody. It's like, oh no, it actually had like a purpose in it.
Yeah, and you almost stop because it does such a good job of immersing you in the world of the film. You stop noticing the black and white, which obviously most films, more than 9 out of 10 films you watch these days, are not in black and white. So this sticks out because it's made in the 90s and it's in black and white. But once you get immersed into the world, it does a really good job of making you forget that. And that's partly down to the fact that what we said in the way it's paying homage. In terms of it being a Tim Burton film, his style, I mean, his fingerprints are on it all the way through, but really the only real bit that you'd be like, no, that's Tim Burton, is the opening where Criswell comes out of a coffin, sort of as if he's the narrator, and then goes back in again. But other than that, it's very much made, and even that itself is like Ed Wood's films, because if you've ever watched any of them, there's bits and bobs on YouTube and stuff. They are like that. There's a lot of really quickly made, cheaply made films where like some random narration over the top explains what's going on because they were making these films so quickly and so cheaply, which was very much a trope of the time, but even more so in this because it was such a quick and easy way to get messages from the film across when they were shooting like 30 scenes in a day or whatever.
I loved that opening scene, especially because what follows it is completely detached from that. So I really didn't know kind of what to expect going in. So Ed Wood was a real man. Is that what you're saying to me? He was a real man and he was a real director.
Yeah, everyone in it's real.
Wow, see, I had absolutely no idea. Wow, how ignorant do I feel? I've got a degree in film. How dare I? But it's so brilliant because it is that. So you're going like these panning and crabbing shots kind of through the graveyard with all the sort of all the cast names on the gravestones, which I thought was really great. And then you come to who was the guy in the coffin again? I did write his name
Criswell.
down.
He's like he's a psychic again. He's a real guy. He was a psychic at the time who was known for making garishly crap predictions, like, we'll be living on Mars in 5 years or whatever it is.
So when obviously he pops out that coffin, he's wearing that great costume, the whole effect, the whole scene is brilliant. And then it just cuts to kind of like normal life and, everything's back to kind of normal. I'm using, air quotes, normal, kind of just ordinary, I suppose. So, because I thought as this film was opening and as that scene was playing out, that it was going to be like more like that it was going to be a film about vampires, because I was just so ignorant, I suppose, to actually what the film was about. But he was great. I loved him as a character. So many of the characters I just thought were brilliant. Like really, just a really eclectic mix of people, I thought. And I feel like all the actors did a really great job. I thought performance-wise, it was great. Just quickly harking back before I forget about the fact that it was in black and white, one of the funniest moments in the film, I thought, was where one of the female cast members asks some guy, like, oh, which dress is better, the red one or the green one? And he goes, I have no idea, I'm colorblind. And it's like, I just thought that was really funny because obviously we're watching a black and white film. So it's like all the audience are colorblind as well with you. And it literally makes no difference whether you're wearing the red or the green dress. I thought that was really funny.
Yeah, it's a good little fourth wall breaking joke, isn't it? Because he says, I like the darker grey one, which is what you see as the darker grey one, whether that's the red or the green one. So it's like that little wink and a nod to the audience, like, it's a black and white film. And you're right, it is a true story, but it's not, I wouldn't say it's it's not a biopic of, someone that's incredibly well known. It's not Gandhi or, something about a member of the royal family or another huge star. Like, I don't know, for example, Judy Garland or someone like that, like we did, like when we were talking about her the other week. So I'm not even sure. I think it's based on a few books, and I think he himself, Ed Wood, wrote memoirs. But I think a lot of it is fairly true. But I think they take, from what I've read, a very optimistic outlook on his life, which we'll come on to shortly. But every character in it, as far as I know, all the main players are real people. So Bela Lugosi was real. He did pass away during the production of one of his films. But that's what I like about it, is the performances are half based in, it's sort of half naturalistic and half stylized, isn't it? So I don't know if there's much footage of what Ed Wood was actually like, or if he actually was like what Johnny Depp is portraying. I know there were people involved in the film who had criticisms and praise for the depictions of various characters, but the performances for me were one of the sort of standouts of the film. Like, what did you think of Johnny Depp's performance?
Oh yeah, brilliant, and always great to see him so young. Like, I felt the same way when I see him in Edward Scissorhands, and it kind of reminded me of that bit of like Fear and Loathing as well, like just young Depp. Like he did do a really great job, and I just can't believe it was actually based on a real guy. Like I had no idea. Like because when we do this, like, I like to go into it blind. I don't want to like research anything about the films before we go in. And I wonder if that would have made me watch it in a different light. But no, yeah, Johnny Depp was great. And I feel like we got really good performances out of all the cast. At no point did I think, that person's a bad actor or that person's unconvincing at all. So Juliet Landau, do you know who she is? So she played Loretta King. She is Drusilla in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Did you watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer?
No, I did not, but I do know that she is Martin Landau's daughter, and Martin Landau plays Bela Lugosi.
Right. Okay. So it was the father and daughter. Interesting. So I love Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Love Angel. Love it all. And I hadn't seen her in anything but Buffy. So when she came on screen, I was just like, oh my God, that's Drusilla from Buffy. So that was great. And she gave a great performance as well. Yeah, the sounds as well. I don't know if you picked up much on the sounds, but just like the Foley artist was obviously doing a lot of work. There was one scene where they were in sort of the gallery of a cinema or something, and there was a film reel like churning, and it was just so loud. I think Johnny Depp, he was trying to have a conversation with another character, and you could barely hear what they were saying over the sound of this film reel. And I thought that was great, and just like really kind of emotive aesthetics and use of sound, I think. And I felt like it really kind of brought the story to life. There was one moment where they're in the cinema and you get the light, obviously, that's coming out of the gallery, and there's so much dust, like just completely filling the cinema. And you just really feel that kind of 1950s feel, I guess.
No, you're right. And that's a big part of why the film succeeds so much in drawing you into it, because you do really feel like you're in this 50s Tinseltown, and the black and white almost helps with that. Like you say, because it's only black and white, you can see the dust really well, and you can, like you say, the soundscape is really interesting. Not only is the music really interesting, but you can hear the roar of every car engine, and you can hear the, like you say, the ticking of the film, or like when he has the props, because it's a film about filmmaking, the props has a lot to do, because I always think it must be a bit of a nightmare to make a film about a film, because you must have your crew behind a camera crew and then behind a set. So it's like a set behind a fake set. So it must be quite a strange experience to make a film about a film. But you do have these great scenes where they've got different props. Like there's one where they've got this giant octopus and it's supposed to be a monster that's living in the water and it's supposed to be smothering to death and wrestling with Bela Lugosi's character, but they forget to put the motor in it, or the motor in it is broken. So he has to just ride around with it on him. So it looks like the octopus monster type thing is attacking him. But the films that he makes, so Plan 9 from Outer Space and Bride of the Atom and Glen or Glenda, it depicts a lot of he made a lot more films, I think, than the film depicts, but they have got this huge cult following. I know people like John Waters are big fans of it because of the kitsch kind of value that they bring. And I know people go a little bit like you get with The Room. Like people go and watch them and they interact with the film and they, they laugh at the right moments and they join in at the right moments. And I think it's good that the film is made so optimistically. I think Tim Burton said he made the film that he thought Ed Wood would make about himself, or that he made the film through Ed Wood's eyes. And there are some darker sides of Ed Wood's personality, which we'll come on to later. But I do really like that it approaches that with that optimism, and it's got it's not a film that is criticizing him. It's not a film that is going, look at this rubbish director. It portrays him, and it's a lot of that's down to Johnny Depp's performance. It portrays him as a man that's sort of really driven and really passionate about what he's doing, but he's constantly trying to keep everything together, and he's pulling in every favor he can, and he's relying on all these friends who are these very larger than life type characters, especially when you consider the time that it's set. And a lot of that is down to, like you say, the sound and the visuals. But the other side of it is, like we've already said, with the performances. So I love Johnny Depp's performance. I know he plays it as a man who he's always trying to keep it together. But every time something goes wrong, he tries to see the positive. So it even starts with him putting a play on, which I think is supposedly about his own experiences in the war. And it gets absolutely slated by the critics, but he finds like one little nugget of nice, it'll be something right down to, the costumes were all right or something. And he always stays optimistic. And that goes through the whole film. Every time a film flops, it's, well, the next one will be better. So I find that quite uplifting. I find that sort of optimism quite uplifting about the film. I also loved, I suppose, the yin to the yang of Ed Wood's character is Bela Lugosi. So Martin Landau, I believe, won one of his Oscars for this film, and I'd never really appreciated his performance. I'd always knew he was good in it, but I've been back and looked at like older photos of Bela Lugosi, and he looks so much like him in the way he carries himself and the way he walks and how slowly he moves. I mean, he had quite a tragic end, to his life as is depicted in the film. But I think he gives a brilliant performance because, like I said, Johnny Depp Ed Wood, should I say, is this massively optimistic character. And yet Bela Lugosi is this sort of worn out, he burnt out, elderly morphine addict that is Bela Lugosi, this sort of fallen star, if you will, just trying to claw back any credibility. The fact that every other character in the film, every time he is mentioned when he's not in the scene, they all think he's dead. And I love that. I love his depiction and how he's so dour and sort of burnt out by it all, and Ed Wood is so young and so driven. I think that's quite an interesting dynamic. I mean, there isn't a bad performance in it. Like you say, Bill Murray is in it. He's very, very good. Sarah Jessica Parker's in it. She's very good as the sort of exasperated wife who is trying to support her partner. Well, she's not his wife. I think she's his girlfriend. She's trying to support her partner, but she's just not quite sure how to do it and can't understand why. It's almost like she loves him and she wants him to succeed, but she just doesn't share in his own optimism about his ability. What do you think about the script?
So it was fine. So I wasn't like completely gripped all the way through. I didn't find it a particularly exciting film, and I didn't find it like incredibly gripping. But I thought the script was absolutely fine, and it wasn't it wasn't cheesy and it wasn't unbelievable. And those are the kind of things that I'm looking for with scripts. And it wasn't lazy either. And those are the things that I find really bother me with a script. If I just think, no, that's not a real conversation, no one would ever speak like that, or if it just kind of doesn't fit well. But I thought it did absolutely fine. But I assume that because you've asked, you have something to say about the script.
Well, yeah, no, I really like the script because I like that it's to the same script writers who wrote Man on the Moon, which is the Andy Kaufman biopic. If you've not seen that, it's well worth a look. And I really like the way they write because they write with a sympathetic eye and they write with a real love for the leading characters. And I really enjoy that. I always wonder with scripts and when a film like this is so stylized, I always wonder, does the script incorporate that? Does the script say, the film opens like a Tim Burton film, or do they write the script and then the director goes, well, can we change this, this, and this? I'm always quite, interested to know, does Tim Burton come on and does he Tim Burtonify the film, or have they written it with Tim Burton in mind to direct? I'm not too sure, but no, I enjoy it because it's very darkly comic at times. It's the most the dialogue's probably the most naturalistic part about the film, and like I said, it's made with a real love for all the characters. We should probably touch as well on the fact that the script does a really good job of discussing. It's very much has a comment to make on identity. So if you haven't seen the film, Edward himself likes to cross-dress. He likes to wear ladies' clothes. I believe what he said was, and I've got a note here, that his wife, Kathy, who is portrayed by Patricia Arquette in the film, later came out and she basically said that he wasn't in any way trans and he was heterosexual, but that his mother would dress him in women's clothing because she wanted a girl, and so that later on he just drew this sort of neo-maternal comfort from it. So I thought that was quite interesting, and the film it's not about that. He comes out at the time, which must have been incredibly brave, and just tells people that he wants to make a film about someone who cross-dresses because he himself cross-dresses. I really enjoy that. It doesn't labour the point too much. It doesn't make it a film about that. This is not what the film is about. It's about him. And that's just one of the things about him as a person, which made him an interesting subject, I suppose.
Yeah, certainly. Like, it's not his whole character. It's just another aspect of him, like the color of his hair or like his height. It's just like, oh, I just happen to enjoy wearing women's clothes. But he obviously does feel a bit pained by it, and like he does want to share it a bit. So he shares it with his girlfriend, Sarah Jessica Parker's character. And she I can't quite recall, I feel like she doesn't take it very well to begin with. But then does she kind of come to terms with it, or do they break off the relationship because she just can't deal with it?
No, I don't. I think it's like you say. She doesn't take it very well, but they don't break up because of it. I think they break up because he gives Juliet Landau's character, he gives her a part that was meant for Sarah Jessica Parker. So he can allegedly get some money for the film to be made. As it turns out, she doesn't have any money. So it's things like that. But it does not paint the film. It doesn't paint her in the way that it's like that's why she splits up with him. It's just that and I like that as the film progresses, it starts and he very much, he does a lot of sort of telling people this is why the reason he should be able to do this particular film is because he does this. And then as it goes on, it just normalizes the fact that he's wearing ladies' clothes as he directs, up until the point where it causes issues with one of the film's backers because they're a Baptist church. I like what the film has to say about acceptance. All his friends just, well, that's just Eddie, that's just our friend. And I like that, especially because it's set in a time that was, I don't think it's unfair to say, a lot less tolerant of this kind of thing. So we'll move on to talking about things that we perhaps didn't like about the film. Is there anything for you, Alice? Is there anything you didn't like?
Just thinking about what I said previously, just about the script just not being... It just didn't have a wow factor for me, like the whole film. Like, I didn't come away loving it. I didn't sort of come away thinking, oh, I'm so glad I saw that film. I didn't dislike it at all. But do you know what I mean? When it just kind of doesn't kind of whack you like other films do. Obviously it was quite funny, but it wasn't hysterically funny. It was quite dramatic, but not totally dramatic. And it was quite sad, but then not devastatingly sad either. It was just, well, I suppose very real, because that is what life is, isn't it? It's not always these heightened emotions all the time. And I do wonder if perhaps I was more aware of Ed Wood as a character and aware that it was based on an actual man who lived and all these characters who lived. Maybe I would have watched it with different eyes. So no, yeah, interesting. Was there anything for you, or was there anything that you noticed watching it this time around that perhaps you didn't previously?
Nothing that I massively disliked. I think that I like Johnny Depp's performance, but there are times when he's a little one note. Like, he has that sort of fixed grin on his face all the way through, and that sort of way of speaking that's very upbeat, as if, like I've said, he's constantly trying to see the optimistic side of things, and anything might make him snap. And there's only really one moment I could think of, or a few moments where he is anything but that. There's the moment where he finds out Bela Lugosi has died, and there's the moment where he loses his temper with the Baptist church because they're trying to interfere in his film. But a lot of the time, he's very one note. Now, I don't know what Ed Wood was like as a person, so perhaps that is what he was like. But I did think that there were times when I suppose the only way I can put it is that his performance is a little bit annoying, or a little bit hammy, maybe. But that's not. I also like that about it. I like that optimism. So I guess that's just the other side of the coin. The other thing I would have liked to have seen more of is having read a little bit more around Ed Wood as a character. So there was a little bit more of a darker side to him. He was quite a bad alcoholic, and I believe that is what ultimately sort of led to his death. And I believe that is more to do. I think the character played by Sarah Jessica Parker went on to be a successful songwriter and wrote songs for Elvis and people like that. And I believe she was still alive when the film came out. And I think she said, well, actually, we split up because of his alcoholism, not because of, how it's depicted in the film. So as much as I really appreciate that the film is sympathetic to him and is trying to make it through his eyes, I think a biopic has to be a bit more warts and all about its subject. It has to be a bit more, here's the good, here's the bad, and here's just them. But nothing that I didn't like. I still enjoy the film. I would, I'd watch it again. So no, nothing that I didn't like.
And it's certainly a well-made film, and it's visually, like we've already said, but it is visually very pleasing, and the cinematography and the sound, like there's just a lot of work that's gone in there, and that is always a great pleasure when you see that, for sure.
So we'll come on to talking about the critical reception then. Now, I've picked this because it's underseen. I don't think it is underrated because I know that it is quite well thought of, and I know it won a couple of awards and stuff. So to give you an idea, how do you think it did? How do you think it did?
Well, at first I thought maybe not so great, but now you've said that you feel like it's done well and it's won awards. So if I was going to rate it, I'd probably sit on the 7 mark and probably wouldn't go much higher than that, like probably dead on 7, but maybe it probably got, I think, maybe a high 7. So I'd say maybe like a 7.8.
Yeah, so you're not far off. So on Rotten Tomatoes, the audience give it 88% at time of recording, and the critics give it 92%. But
wow!
But on IMDb, it does actually get 7.8 out of 10. So you're spot on there. Yeah. So
brilliant.
So
wow, those are big scores on the Rotten Tomatoes, aren't they?
So would you say that's overrated for you in terms of its reception?
I mean, a 92. Yeah, certainly. I wouldn't have said it was 92% good. But I mean, maybe because it's critics, isn't it? Like maybe this is the kind of thing that the critics like. And I suppose if you are familiar with Ed Wood, which I imagine film critics are likely to be, maybe they just saw something in it that I didn't quite. But that's a remarkable score. I mean, great. Like, it's Tim Burton and Johnny Depp. I'm really happy for them.
Yeah, if only they'd worked together more after this, I mean,
More.
No, I know what you mean. I mean, I really like the film, but I'm not sure I'd put 92% for it. I think for me, the rating is somewhere in between those two scores, somewhere in between what you've said with the 7 and somewhere between that 88%, maybe like an 8.5. I do really enjoy it. But I picked it because it's underseen. So I mean, I think that I probably should have said this earlier, really. I think that when it came out, it was really critically well received, but I don't think it did very well commercially. I'm not even sure it made its money back. So I sort of took that and extrapolated, and I thought, well, I think it's probably quite underseen, because I know you do get a lot of people who really, really like Tim Burton, but what they usually say is things like Batman and Nightmare Before Christmas, which I know he didn't direct, but he was involved in, and his name is very much plastered all over it. Or Alice in Wonderland and Coraline and Frankenweenie and all that other stuff. But I actually think Tim Burton himself is a good director, even when he's not putting his own massive style on things, in terms of, you know, what you think of as his gothic style. So I really like that for this. I think it's, as much as it is quite cartoony, I think it is more toned down. It's a bit like, have you seen Big Fish, which is another Tim Burton film? I
haven't, but this made me think that I should watch Big Fish, because Ewan McGregor's in that,
Ewan
right?
McGregor and Albert Finney and I can't remember who else, but but that's really good, and it is quite magical and quite sort of with loads of big characters in it and stuff, but it's not as gothic, so it is a little bit different. So, and it is, again, the heart of the film is at the story. It is the story, not necessarily the style. So that's another reason why I picked this, but I do think it's underseen. So would you agree? Is it underseen? Are we in an alliance on this one?
I do think it's underseen. A, because I hadn't seen it, but B, it isn't a film that comes up very often. It's not a film, like, I've never seen clips used from it. You don't hear it quoted. It's just not one that people do really talk about. And I think you're right. And a lot of the time now, Tim Burton is in the same breath as the more animated ones, as the ones that are, you know, the claymation or whatever it was that he was doing. And this, I feel like this is kind of like almost like a standalone Tim Burton, because of the black and white, and because it isn't supernatural in any way. It's just about people who are making films about supernatural things, which I think is really interesting.
And if you say to people, name me 3 Tim Burton films, maybe even 5, they probably wouldn't say this. And it's quite interesting that he made this in 1994. And if you look at his track record up then, you've got Batman Returns, Batman, Beetlejuice and Edward Scissorhands all in that sort of 5-year period. So perhaps he got to this stage in his career and just thought, I just want to make something with minimal effects and a very character-driven story. And I think that's what he did. But, you know, it's not going to make as much money as Batman or Beetlejuice, is it? So there we go. Another one for the underseen pile.
Yes, I think we can agree that Edward is underseen. So if you're listening to this episode on iTunes, do feel free to go and give us a 5-star review. It does us a massive favour, and it means more people will get to listen to us. It means we can keep making the podcast, or, you know, tell a friend. Go old school, word of mouth, eh?
Yeah, if you've got any friends unlike us who just sit in rooms in a lockdown talking about films from 1994. As Alice said, anything you do would be greatly appreciated. That being said, if you would like to get in touch with the podcast, we've asked for some listener suggestions, which we're going to be doing hopefully in coming weeks. If you would like to get in touch and give us a suggestion, it's filmsandthatpod@gmail.com. We're on Twitter at films_that, or Facebook and Instagram at filmsandthatpod. Alice, it's been a pleasure as always.
Thank you, Josh. Always lovely to sit and gab with you.
And it's cheerio from me. Goodbye.
Bye.